Nobody expected it to explode like this. One moment, cameras were rolling, crew quietly coordinating. The next, Andre stormed through the set, flinging his microphone like it was a weapon. Production froze. Elizabeth, caught in the crossfire of his fury, sank to the floor, tears streaming, whispering she couldn't do it anymore. This wasn't just another argument for TV. This was chaos spilling over into real danger, and it would change everything for Season 9 of 90 Day Fiancé. And if you love untangling the messy, unpredictable drama behind reality TV, make sure to hit subscribe and drop a comment below telling me which moment shocked you the most. Today, we're peeling back the curtain on the meltdown that forced TLC to finally say enough. What really happened off camera is far more intense than anything fans saw on screen. Andre and Elizabeth were already known for being one of the franchise's most volatile couples, but what unfolded during this taping wasn't scripted. Crew members reported fear like they'd never felt before. Some froze mid-step, unsure if they should intervene. Others quietly sent incident reports to management, hoping anyone, could prevent this from escalating. Behind the cameras, whispers of panic rippled through production. The network was quietly taking notes, HR was watching, and a plan was already being sketched for a situation no one wanted to publicize. Elizabeth tried to mediate, her voice cracking, her body tense from weeks of emotional strain. Every word she spoke was weighed down by exhaustion, every attempt to calm Andre failing under the weight of his escalating aggression. You could see it in her posture, hear it in her soft apologies. This wasn't entertainment, it was survival. And then came the moment that broke the set. Andre's accusation that the crew was sabotaging him, combined with the sheer force of his outburst, made the studio feel unsafe. Cameras kept rolling, but the focus shifted from drama to damage control. Producers scrambled to protect staff. Elizabeth whispered pleas that barely reached him. And somewhere in the chaos, the realization hit TLC couldn't ignore this any longer. And trust me, the drama we didn't see will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about Season 9. Behind the polished cuts and dramatic teasers, a storm had been brewing for weeks. What led to this moment wasn't one fight, but a series of tensions, warnings, and simmering frustrations. And now, the network had a choice: risk another incident or cut ties forever. The question looming over every camera, every crew member, every producer was simple. How far could this go before someone got seriously hurt? Before that explosive meltdown, the tension had been quietly building, like smoke before a fire. Andre and Elizabeth came into Season 9 with a reputation for drama, but behind the cameras, the stakes were higher than ever. Andre's irritability was sharper, quicker to flare at the smallest perceived slight, and Elizabeth seemed constantly on edge, juggling her own stress while trying to smooth over his outbursts. Fans thought they were watching love mixed with chaos, but the crew was seeing something far less entertaining: a pressure cooker of unrelenting conflict that threatened to boil over at any moment. Compared to earlier seasons, the warning signs were everywhere. Andre argued over trivial production details, questioned motives, and snapped at instructions as if every crew member were deliberately trying to provoke him. Elizabeth, meanwhile, carried the weight of two roles: the cast member the audience loved to root for, and the mediator trying to keep a volatile situation from spinning completely out of control. Even simple tasks like setting up a scene became exercises in tension management. A producer's casual comment could ignite a fight, a misplaced camera angle could trigger accusations of sabotage, and Elizabeth often found herself apologizing for things beyond her control. Psychologists often say chronic stress makes people hyper-alert, prone to misread signals, and slower to regulate emotions. That was happening in real time on set. Andre's constant state of agitation made it difficult for anyone to predict his next move, while Elizabeth's repeated emotional strain started to take a visible toll. Her smiles were thin, her steps careful, her eyes scanning for potential triggers. Crew members described feeling walking on eggshells, aware that any small incident could escalate into a real conflict. Producers tried to maintain calm, anticipating flashpoints, but the more they intervened, the more Andre pushed back. Warnings were given, rules reiterated, yet the tension persisted. Elizabeth, caught in the middle, often felt torn between loyalty to her husband and a growing concern for her own mental health and the safety of everyone on set. Her attempts to de-escalate didn't always work, leaving her drained and the crew increasingly anxious. The audience never saw these quiet battles. Edited footage made it look like drama and entertainment, a controlled chaos designed for ratings. What they didn't see were the whispered concerns, the emergency meetings, the subtle signs of exhaustion etched across Elizabeth's face. Every day added another layer to the stress that would eventually explode. By mid-season, the set had become a minefield. What started as minor irritations escalated into full-blown incidents that left crew members genuinely uneasy. Andre's frustration with routine production tasks turned into confrontations over microphone packs, blocking shots, and even the timing of scenes. One day, he allegedly refused to put on his mic, claiming it was hurting his back, then flung it across the floor when asked again. That wasn't just an argument, it was a warning sign, a moment that made everyone stop and realize the environment had crossed into unsafe territory. Walk-offs became increasingly common. Elizabeth, exhausted from mediating, sometimes stormed off in tears, leaving producers scrambling to salvage scenes while trying to calm Andre. Field producers documented every incident, and HR quietly started tracking reports. The tension wasn't just uncomfortable, it was creating legal and safety concerns that production couldn't ignore. Ratings were high, and the drama on screen was undeniable, but the stakes behind the cameras were escalating faster than anyone could control. Each incident piled on the last. Crew members began preemptively planning how to protect themselves, moving cautiously around Andre, alert for signs of an imminent blow-up. Makeup artists noticed Elizabeth's emotional strain. Stylists commented on her trembling hands, and even experienced producers admitted they were nervous. What the audience saw as scripted chaos was, in fact, weeks of mounting stress, mismanagement of aggression, and unfiltered human emotion. Producers tried every tactic: rewrites, scene edits, gentle reminders, even one-on-one discussions with Andre. Nothing fully worked. Each intervention seemed to feed his sense of being manipulated, escalating conflicts further. Elizabeth's attempts to intervene often fell flat, leaving her drained and the crew even more anxious. The pressure was no longer just a background factor. It became the central drama on set, spilling over from the cameras into real-world consequences. You won't believe the exact moment the network realized Andre and Elizabeth were a danger. Not just drama. It all came to a head during a mid-season taping session intended to be routine. Andre's agitation spiked over small production requests, resulting in a heated confrontation with a field producer. Voices were raised, equipment nearly damaged, and Elizabeth pleaded for calm while trying to keep the crew safe. Security had to intervene, moving cast and crew to de-escalate the situation. Behind the scenes, emails flew to senior management, incident reports piled up, and HR was involved in real-time discussions. This wasn't a single outburst. It was the tipping point of weeks of documented stress, aggression, and volatile behavior. The network faced a dilemma: keep filming and risk injury and legal consequences, or step in and cut ties with a couple who, until that moment, had delivered enormous ratings. Every executive meeting, every private conversation revolved around the same question: how far could this escalate before someone got hurt? The cameras were rolling, but what they captured was only a fraction of the story. Off camera, tension was boiling like lava beneath a calm surface. Hidden footage, private reports, and whispered complaints revealed a side of Andre and Elizabeth Season 9 viewers would never see. Crew members described arguments so intense that they left people physically recoiling. Elizabeth often tried to calm Andre, but each attempt drained her further, leaving her looking fragile, exhausted, and constantly on edge. Every day brought new confrontations. In one instance, Andre allegedly shouted at a field producer over a scene's direction, sending the crew scrambling to protect equipment and themselves. Makeup artists noticed Elizabeth quietly crying in her trailer, brushing away tears before stepping back into the chaos. One production assistant reportedly said, "It felt like we were trying to keep a hurricane contained in a studio." Every interaction carried the weight of weeks of unprocessed tension, and every small incident added pressure to the editing room. Fans never saw the impact of these hidden moments. The on-screen drama, yelling matches, awkward pauses, explosive arguments, was only a curated version of reality. Editors had to navigate a minefield of raw emotion, unscripted chaos, and safety concerns, often cutting entire scenes because they were too dangerous to broadcast. This wasn't about censoring content, it was about protecting staff and cast while maintaining a coherent storyline. What happened during episode 12 almost made someone quit on the spot. A routine family discussion escalated when Andre lashed out at a camera operator, causing the operator to step back in fear. Elizabeth tried to intervene, her voice barely audible over Andre's accusations. The crew scrambled to separate them, while production logged every second as potential evidence. The contrast between the show viewers saw and what actually unfolded behind the scenes was staggering. The emotional labor on set was intense. Elizabeth constantly tried to mediate, balancing her own emotional exhaustion with the safety of others. Producers were forced into a dual role: storytellers and crisis managers, working tirelessly to prevent one small spark from igniting a disaster. Chronic stress, escalating frustration, and unfiltered aggression meant that even routine production tasks felt risky. Crew members had to be vigilant, watching for subtle signs of tension and anticipating outbursts before they erupted. Editors faced a tough choice. How do you preserve the storyline when half of your footage could be dangerous to air or impossible to salvage? Every cut required judgment, creativity, and emotional sensitivity. The result was a show that looked dramatic and engaging on screen, but barely hinted at the chaos behind the scenes. And the question lingered. With mounting safety concerns and rising tempers, how long could production continue without someone getting seriously hurt? The next incident would prove pivotal, and the network would soon realize the stakes were far higher than ratings. Everything came to a head during what was supposed to be a routine mid-season taping. Andre refused to put on his microphone pack, claiming it was uncomfortable, but when production insisted, he allegedly flung it across the set, shattering equipment and creating a moment of pure panic. Crew members froze, unsure whether to intervene or protect themselves. Elizabeth, exhausted from weeks of trying to manage his temper, dropped to her knees, pleading with him to stop, her voice cracking under the weight of fear and frustration. The tension was unbearable. Cameras captured some of the confrontation, but what happened off-camera was far worse. Field producers later reported feeling threatened as Andre moved aggressively toward them, voices raised, faces tense. The rest of the crew scrambled to secure themselves and the set. Security had to step in, gently guiding both cast and staff away from immediate danger. Elizabeth left the area in tears, whispering she couldn't continue, and the atmosphere was described by several insiders as chaotic, uncontrolled, and frightening. This wasn't another dramatic fight for the cameras. This was real risk, real fear, and a stark reminder that reality TV can cross a line when behavior becomes unsafe. Producers worked frantically to salvage the session, attempting to keep the storyline intact while protecting everyone on set. Every camera angle, every line of dialogue became a balancing act between drama and disaster. Ratings and fan engagement suddenly felt secondary to the immediate responsibility of ensuring people weren't hurt. Emails and incident reports were sent to the highest levels of TLC management within hours. HR flagged the situation as a safety concern, and executives began reviewing weeks of uncut footage. The networks suddenly faced a reality they couldn't ignore. Andre and Elizabeth were no longer just a source of ratings. They were a potential liability that could threaten the safety of staff and the integrity of the production. This footage left executives speechless, and it sealed the couple's fate forever. The decision was swift but carefully calculated. TLC had to act decisively, removing the couple from the show immediately but quietly, without creating a public scandal. Production meetings, attorney reviews, and executive calls happened almost simultaneously. Every report, every time-stamped incident, every off-camera confrontation became evidence supporting a permanent ban. Andre and Elizabeth's volatility had crossed a threshold, one that made it impossible for the network to continue working with them safely. And while viewers would eventually notice their absence on screen, they could never fully grasp the storm of chaos that had unfolded behind the scenes. But what exactly did the executives see in the uncut footage that made them take such drastic measures? That's where the story escalates even further. Behind closed doors, the network was working quickly but carefully. Emails were flying, incident reports were being reviewed, and HR flagged repeated safety concerns. Executives pored over uncut footage, documenting every heated exchange, every flung microphone, every instance where crew members felt unsafe. Legal teams weighed in, noting the growing liability if production continued without intervention. Ratings were high, the audience engaged, but the executives realized one misstep could turn a reality show into a full-blown crisis. TLC's response had to be precise. Every decision was measured, every step calculated to protect the staff while minimizing public fallout. Calls with producers, field staff, and legal advisors happened in rapid succession, each conversation peeling back another layer of the danger that Andre and Elizabeth had created. The network wasn't reacting impulsively. They were assessing the risk, documenting behavior, and preparing a strategy that balanced safety, legality, and audience expectations. Producers shared firsthand accounts: Andre's repeated aggression, Elizabeth's emotional exhaustion, and the crew's growing fear. HR emphasized that the pattern wasn't just disruptive, it was unsafe. Security reports were attached to executive briefings, detailing every incident that could have escalated into serious harm. By the end of the review, the picture was clear. Andre and Elizabeth were no longer manageable within the typical reality show framework. Meanwhile, the tension wasn't just on paper. Executives felt the weight of public perception versus private reality. On screen, the couple appeared dramatic but entertaining. Behind the cameras, they were unpredictable and volatile, pushing staff to the edge. Every decision carried stakes. How do you remove cast members who are central to a season without causing a scandal, losing fan trust, or leaving storyline gaps? Open discussions considered every angle. Could the couple be written out gradually? Could scenes be re-edited to minimize their presence? Would the public notice if key episodes were reshaped? Every scenario came with potential risks: legal, logistical, and reputational. TLC needed a solution that protected the team and the network while preserving the show's narrative flow. The tension was palpable. Executives and producers were united in one conclusion: Andre and Elizabeth had crossed a line that couldn't be reversed. Ratings and drama no longer outweighed safety and liability. The network now faced its next challenge: how to remove them without alerting fans immediately, keeping the show intact while addressing the real danger they posed. And the stakes were higher than anyone realized. One misstep, one public misinterpretation, could have undone weeks of production, exposed staff to risk, and reshaped the reputation of the franchise forever. When the episodes aired, fans were puzzled. Andre and Elizabeth were suddenly absent from key scenes, their storylines left dangling, unresolved. Social media lit up with speculation. Had they quit? Were they in some off-screen drama? Rumors spread like wildfire. Theories ranging from secret resignations to behind-the-scenes betrayals. Nobody outside the production knew the truth. The chaos they had witnessed on screen was only a small fragment of what was actually happening. The contrast between public perception and private reality was staggering. On TV, the couple looked dramatic, entertaining, sometimes even chaotic, but harmless. Behind the scenes, the story was entirely different. Crew members had been managing weeks of escalating tension, documenting threats, and ensuring safety while trying to preserve the narrative. Editors wrestled with footage too volatile to air, and HR flagged behaviors that could no longer be contained. Fans saw spectacle. Producers dealt with crisis. Elizabeth's emotional toll became invisible to viewers. She was often caught in the middle, balancing loyalty to Andre with concern for crew safety, all while maintaining her own sanity. Her pleas, quiet sobs, and moments of exhaustion were completely unedited out. The audience got conflict, but they didn't see fear, anxiety, or the effort it took to keep the season afloat. That emotional labor, invisible to fans, was massive and relentless. Fan theories grew wilder with each missing scene. Some claimed Andre had stormed off the show voluntarily. Others speculated about contract disputes, rumors of secret footage, or behind-the-scenes firings. While speculation was entertaining for viewers, it highlighted a psychological truth. Audiences are fascinated by drama, but they rarely consider the real human cost behind it. Emotional strain, workplace fear, and legal complications aren't part of the entertainment. They're hidden layers that viewers only glimpse if insiders speak out. Could the couple have salvaged anything at this point? Every warning, every escalation, every documented incident had brought them to a tipping point. By the time production decided on permanent measures, the narrative was no longer theirs to control. Their actions had created a situation where safety and liability outweighed ratings and spectacle. And as fans debated theories and crafted memes, the network quietly moved forward, editing episodes, reshaping storylines, and protecting staff from further harm. The reality of what happened on set was hidden in plain sight, a secret drama unfolding behind the familiar faces of a hit show. The fallout from Season 9 didn't just vanish with Andre and Elizabeth's absence. Behind the scenes, production teams were still processing the emotional weight of what had occurred. HR and executives reviewed every report, every time-stamped incident, and every unedited clip. The decision to ban the couple permanently was framed as necessary, not punitive. It wasn't about ratings, drama, or fan reaction. It was about protecting humans in a high-pressure environment where one misstep could have led to serious harm. Crew morale was a central concern. Editors, camera operators, and field producers had worked under stress that far exceeded any previous season. Emotional exhaustion, anxiety, and fear were common, and the network's swift action signaled that their safety mattered more than the content being produced. Elizabeth's emotional labor became a stark reminder of the human cost of mediating chaos. She had tried to keep the story moving while protecting herself and others, a balancing act that pushed her to her limits. Fans continued to speculate online, creating theories and debates, but the reality of the permanent ban remained largely invisible. For the network, the key takeaway was that ratings, clicks, and drama have limits. When behavior crosses into aggression, threats, or unsafe territory, no amount of spectacle can justify ignoring it. This season became a case study in the importance of risk assessment, employee well-being, and the consequences of unchecked volatility. Psychologically, the situation also highlighted how chronic stress and unmediated conflict affect decision-making. Andre's aggression escalated as his perception of manipulation grew, while Elizabeth's attempts at mediation added to her exhaustion. Crew members had to maintain hypervigilance, anticipating outbursts and de-escalating situations that viewers would never witness. This behind-the-scenes reality underscores the emotional complexity of producing reality television. Drama may be entertaining, but real human responses come with costs. The permanent ban also sent a message to future cast members and the franchise as a whole. Behavior matters. Network executives now had a clear line they were unwilling to cross. The franchise could continue to deliver intense drama, but not at the expense of safety, ethics, or legal risk. Ratings alone were no longer enough to justify putting people in danger. Season 9 serves as a stark reminder that reality TV is never purely entertainment. There are real humans, real emotions, and real consequences lurking behind the scenes. The spectacle may thrill viewers, but it's the careful balance of safety, psychological insight, and ethical responsibility that keeps the production alive. And while fans might never fully understand the chaos that unfolded, the lessons from Andre and Elizabeth's downfall continue to echo. Drama has limits, and crossing them can end a reality TV career forever.